some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
This is my boomstick. Here's Johnny.
I have to return some videotapes.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Hello and welcome to All Things Horror. My name is Ben and I'm joined here with Matt. If you're unfamiliar with the show, each week we choose a movie to break down and review, giving our honest opinions and rating it from 1 to 10. This week we're going to be talking about An American Werewolf in London. But before we do, let's take a quick look at the trailer.
This is the story of two young American students traveling through England on a night of the full moon.
Did you hear that? I heard that. What was it? Could be a lot of things.
Fate let one live.
That lunatic must have been a very fierce fellow.
Wasn't a lunatic.
What?
A wolf.
Oh, be serious, would you?
And now everything is changing. Changing. Changing.
Good Lord.
John Landis, the brilliant young director of Animal House and the Blues Brothers, has turned a classic tale of terror into something new. Something different.
Excuse me.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
I'm a werewolf.
An American Werewolf in London. Something different.
Alright, I'm going to read the synopsis straight off the back of the box. David Norton and Jenny Agutter star in this classic cult black comedy. American backpackers David Kessler and Jack, it's not got his last name on the back, take off for a 3-month European jaunt. Walking in the desolate English countryside, they come across some locals who give them some chilling words of advice. Keep to the road and keep clear of the moors. And beware of the moon. The boys set off into the darkness and hear a terrifying howl from across the moors, unaware that they are being stalked by a mythical beast with a taste for blood. Those who are killed by this creature become the undead, roaming the earth throughout eternity. But anyone who escapes with his life has a different fate in store. So Matt, have you seen this film before? I would imagine you have.
I have, and again, this is you're testing my powers of my memory because, like, a bit like The Fly, it was a film. It was like a one and done about. I'm not going to say 20 years ago because that's what I said last week, but maybe about, let's say, 15 years ago. So it was good fun to watch it. Different. Sometimes it's good, isn't it? Watch a film in a different point in your life and see if you feel differently about it. And I definitely was able to kind of notice a lot more from other films that I've seen and kind of films that followed it. So yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to delving into American Werewolf in London with you. It was another good challenge that you've set me.
Yeah, I can't even think the amount of times I've watched this. Probably saw it first when I was about 16.
Awesome.
But yeah, since then it's been one of those films that I keep going back to quite often, over and over.
Oh, that's good.
Then again, saying that, I guess it's probably been 5 or 6 years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But even now, I'm noticing things that I've never really properly spotted before in all the times I've watched it. Maybe because I'm watching it more in depth now. Yeah,
it's a sign of a good film, isn't it? When or even a good book, you can go back to it and find something just a tiny bit different in it, and kind of identify, and that kind of makes you kind of appreciate the quality of the film. You go, oh yeah, I didn't even spot that the last 10 times I watched it. So yeah, that's really good.
So we've got John Landis, who both written and directed this film. The cast: David Norton, who plays David Kessler, Jenny Agutta, who's Nurse Alex Price, and Griffin Dunn. Jack Goodman. It didn't say his name on the back of the box. Did it ever mention his last name throughout the film? Jack Goodman.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Possibly. That sounds right. Yeah. It sounds like I've heard it before, but like, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously all the names are kind of like... with John Landis is obviously like a Jewish guy, and you've got the Jewish names, and there's a lot of... obviously, even the big fear in the later on, and one of the things is like kind of the Nazis and the kind of the social side of things, and it's really interesting. It's a bit of wish fulfillment, I think, isn't it? John Landis being Jewish is like, I'm going to make this irresistible Jewish young man who women just fall at his feet because of because he's so irresistible. Yeah, it's a bit like me writing about a 40-something, geeky guy from Stockport and how amazing he is. Like, that sounds familiar.
So the only other main cast is John Woodvine, who plays Dr. Hirsch.
Yeah, you've got Brian Glover and Rick Mayall in the pub.
Ah, yes, cool. I did notice Rick in the pub. Yeah,
Rick Mayall obviously not encouraged to speak because his accent wouldn't be the right one for if we're kind of thinking of it as like the Yorkshire Moors, they're all going to sound like Brian Glover, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But he was just kind of like grunting and looking, wasn't he? Didn't really say very much, Rick Mayall, but it was good to see him.
So the release date for this film was 1981. See, I didn't realise when watching this was so early.
No.
I thought this was going to be late 80s, 87, 88. Yeah, I didn't realise that it was early 80s.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't feel to me that it was early 80s. Probably because the effects were so good, for that
There's
time.
no like clothing, like hangover from the 70s style clothing that might give you a clue. They all look like quite, the boys certainly look quite like preppy, and then they're in their the hiking gear and what have you. Other than the kind of stereotypical country folk, which I suppose could be from any time. You've only really got the kind of the age of cars and the layout of London if you're like kind of a London aficionado or live in London.
Yeah, that's true.
You go, oh, that's not there anymore, or there's not as many porno theatres as there used to be. Things like that. But yeah, there's not a lot to give away its age, is it? And I think the practical effects are so good, it doesn't look cheesy or campy, so you wouldn't like put it in with, say, some of the 70s horror.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just so well made. John Landis, he knows how to put a film together. Certainly. Yeah,
it's very different for him.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's like, it's definitely not the same as the Blues Brothers. But it's not. And people call this a horror comedy. There's not tons of comedy in it, but there's some like whimsical parts to it that make it a bit less than, say, Shaun of the Dead or something like that. Not as, but there's definitely some. You can see that Shaun of the Dead or films like that were kind of looking at this and going, oh, I like how they did that. Yeah, we could definitely put this in.
It's just enough like sprinkled throughout, I think.
Yeah, for somebody who has done, I'm not a big fan of like Blues Brothers, but obviously that's kind of like a big caper comedy action. But then his grounding with like, I am a massive fan of the Zucker Brothers and Airplane and Naked Gun and all those really daft, Top Secret, all of those. So you can see, because he did Kentucky Fried Movie, their first movie, that obviously he does lean towards the comedy, doesn't he? So like you say, that some of the more gruesome parts of this are a real departure. Maybe I wonder if that he would say this is his most personal movie. That, like I said before, there's a lot about his, the same people, same heritage as him, coming over to England, kind of almost not autobiographical because he's not a werewolf, but yeah, I'm just wondering if this is like kind of, that's why it's such a departure, because it's a little bit more autobiographical.
Yeah, I did have this saved for the trivia bit, but as we're touching on it now, I'll talk about it now. He actually wrote this film when he was 18.
Right, I get that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know why it took him so long. I mean, I know he got turned down quite a lot because I think people got put off the idea of comedy horror.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a thing.
And also, if you're 18, you're not far removed from adolescence, changes, body changes, personality changes, wanting to be attractive to women. All of these things, you could say, you can see them in this script. You can, like Jenny Agut's just throwing herself at him. He's like super cool Jewish student who's irresistible to women, like I said before, and like obviously there's that kind of becoming more. Like there's a part of it where he's really happy. Well, don't want to get into spoilers, but there's parts of the film where you think he's actually okay with what's happening. It's like pretty cool, a bit like The Fly. It's similar, isn't it? In a lot of ways, like there's parts of The Fly where Seth is just loving what's happening to his body as it changes.
Yeah, I know what bit you're on about. Yeah, it is quite similar, really. These two films, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, it's funny that because I'm wondering because you've obviously chose these two films back to back, maybe subconsciously, and they're both two films that you've said you love.
Yeah,
there's something there, isn't there? There's like a commonality of quality filmmakers, obviously, but also like the themes are really interesting as well, aren't they? They're not dead simple. They're quite complex themes when you break it down.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So I'm just saying you're super intelligent. That's all.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's all right.
So this had a runtime of 97 minutes, and much like The Fly as well. That was in the 90s as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think we both agreed on that episode where if it's in the 90s, that is a kind of good length for a film.
Yeah, 7 minutes away from perfection.
This shocked me actually. This had a really low budget of 5.8 mil. I mean, even for the 80s, that's quite low. But what it made in the box office was 62 million.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I've got completely different numbers, but then maybe I was looking at something.
Oh, really?
I was looking at the wrong film or something. Yeah. I read that it made most of its money outside of the USA.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Like worldwide did quite well, but not as didn't make a massive amount in the US. And again, maybe that's why they kind of knew that he's got the clout to make the film.
Yeah.
But they kind of think it's not going to be really mainstream and make us lots of money, so maybe they didn't promote it as much in the US.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, it had London in the title, so that helps. And it's like a big director setting a film in London. So yeah, interesting. What's I'm going to hijack and ask you a question. How do you feel about John Landis as a director in general? Is this the only one that you really kind of think is amazing, or do you have like a love for any of his other stuff?
No. I do like him as a director. I think on Blu-ray I've got The Blues Brothers and Animal House. I really like those two. They're the only like 3 films I think I've really seen of him. But yeah, no, I love his direction.
Yeah, there's been some good ones. I mean, he directed the Thriller video, so we can link that back to me.
Oh yeah, of course he did.
Yammering on about Vincent Price again. But Coming to America, which
okay,
which I do think is the first one anyway. It's an absolutely brilliant film, really funny.
Yeah.
Trading Places, which I think is okay. But for me, I used to love Coming to America. It was so good. I mean, I love that film just because of how good Eddie Murphy is in it, or not that much about John Landis.
I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I've not actually seen Coming to America.
Just watch the first one. Don't watch the recent remake. But yeah, I think he did Three Amigos as well, didn't he? Which is pretty good. I think as well what probably puts a lot of people off it is that there was the problematic on-set disaster, helicopter crash, things like that, and also which I think was a kind of a case, from what, I don't want to speculate, but from what I've read, there's different things about his kind of attitudes towards that and what happened, and also his son is obnoxious and problematic, so there's a lot of reasons to kind of back away from John Landis. But if we just zero in on this film and for me, Kentucky Fried Movie, Coming to America, and for you, Blues Brothers, Thriller, then yeah, we're fine. But it, again, like I'm sure as we go through, lots of people who've been making movies for a long time will end up discussing about separating art from the artist, and is that possible, and what our thoughts on that, because there will be he won't be the first problematic person that we come across when we're watching these films. So yeah, it's just worth mentioning, I suppose.
So we touched on this earlier when we was talking about it being made in 81, and I think part of the reason why I didn't realise why it was so old was because of the special effects. I mean, it's got to be top 5 best horror for special effects. Would you agree? In my own personal opinion, do you think that's...
No, totally. Yeah, totally.
Because Rick Baker, I mean, it's...
Yeah, and when you...
It's him.
He's definitely the go-to guy for werewolves, but even digging deeper, he's done such a range of, sort of...
You got his filmography up.
I've just written down the ones that kind of jumped out. But yeah, he's just so good, and obviously they won. I think they won the Oscar, didn't they, for the makeup?
Yeah.
And makeup effects, and he's kind of worked with Wes Craven. He's done some really weird ones as well. He's done again, I don't want to. It sounds like I'm just talking about problematic things, but Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Really?
That was him as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yes, he's your werewolf guy, and I know he did Thriller because obviously he must come as a pair with John Landis.
Yeah.
Because the makeup in that's really good as well. Superman 2 and Superman 3.
Okay.
And I was trying to remember, obviously there's not a lot of makeup effects or practical effects in Superman.
Not really.
But yeah, this is just a strange one.
Yeah, I've got a few down here. He did the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Was that the Jim Carrey one?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
He also did the Nutty Professor.
Oh yeah, I've got Norbit. Classic. I've actually not seen it. I really don't want to.
No.
But yeah, he did Norbit.
He's done Hellboy, King Kong, Men in Black. I think he's done all the Men in Blacks.
Men in Black's a lot of practical effects in there.
Yeah.
A lot of weird creatures and things like that to do, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? I don't know whether crossover from makeup effects and practical effects, but obviously making the werewolves in this is a little bit more than just a dab of makeup, isn't it? It's it's one of the best sort of transformations you'll ever see.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I've also got down here that he did the original Star Wars, A New Hope.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could read my own writing because I definitely. Yeah, I've got that. I've got that down as well. I've got Videodrome, The Howling, again, werewolves. Yeah, wow. So just list off loads, really. John Carpenter's Body Bags, like the kind of lesser known sort of like TV-ish movie that he did. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, there's a lot there. Rick Baker's just. I suppose we could just go along that for ages, couldn't we? And I can't believe I can't believe I didn't even mention Star Wars. There are people who will be listening to this going like, yeah, what are you doing? Yeah. You've let yourself down.
So I've got a lot of like little key points that I like to make note of as I'm watching. You know, just like cinematography. You know, the location, the score, and I didn't really pay much attention to the score. Did you?
Well,
there seemed to be more soundtrack.
Yeah. There's obviously
and I noticed they're all like moon-related songs. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah. Well, you've got Van Morrison, Moondance. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you got because I love Van Morrison. So good. You've got Werewolves of London. Is Werewolves of London? Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's just it's like a prototype jukebox soundtrack, isn't it? It's not so much like I don't think I noticed the score, but I certainly noticed the key films. And again, that ties in, like we were saying before, something like to put it in the same areas like an Edgar Wright film. You know, he has become literally more about music than he has story. Like almost like just it's tied in directly now to the story, isn't it? The music is the story.
Yeah.
So like this is one of those, really, isn't it? Where he's obviously been able to get the licenses to some really good quality songs that fit perfectly in the film.
Yeah, like one of the songs, Blue Moon. They got 3 different versions of that.
Oh, okay.
Throughout the whole film by 3 different people, like the intro, and I think during his transformation scene, and the outro. I think it's all the same song, but recorded by 3 different people. Right,
because it's one of those. Again, don't want to alienate anyone, but the Manchester City connotations put me off it. So it's like just hearing it, even though I think it's a perfectly lovely song, I'm just like, yeah, it just makes me groan when I hear it. I'm just like, City. Just an involuntary reaction. But yeah, you're right. The big tentpole songs throughout, aren't there?
Yeah.
And I reckon that's quite, other than sort of films maybe set in the 50s, or you kind of, I was going to say like Back to the Futures and things like that, you know, where you've got certain key songs all the way through. It is more of a modern thing, isn't it? Like a Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, where you kind of it's a shortcut really to making somebody like your film, isn't it? Because if you play loads of songs that everyone likes, then they're on board.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, it can be overdone, can't it? I think I'm trying to think which film it is, but there's certainly one where it's like, for example, Led Zeppelin, Immigrant Song. That is used a lot now in films, almost to the point where you just sigh when it comes on. You're like, it's a brilliant song, but like, let's just choose something that shows a little bit of independent thought, or what your taste might be, rather than what you think people should hear in this particular part. Like, it's become a bit robotic, I guess. But it's interesting that this does that in a way that definitely enhances the film, doesn't it? The music makes it seem a bit cooler as well.
Yeah. So cinematography for this one. Obviously, the film kind of opens up in the great hillside. I don't think it actually says exactly where they are at that point. Obviously, they're on their way to the slaughtered lamb, but that was actually filmed in Wales.
Yeah, and then the people in the pub and everything have like broad Yorkshire accents. So yeah. I mean, when he gets attacked and he gets shipped to the hospital, that it's possible that's the closest place, or the sort of almost like, because it's like almost like an international incident, because he'd being American, that they would automatically take him to London. His family would then eventually come. So realistically, I suppose it could be anywhere, and we've just missed out that period of time. You know, we don't need to see him in the back of an ambulance or whatever, or when he's stabilised and moved to somewhere. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Because everyone is like proper. Like Brian Glover's in it, for God's sake. So you've got that like, hey old lad, and there must be a reason why Rick Mayall doesn't say anything. Just confuse the audience. I mean, it is possible that people have different accents and they live away from where they're originally from. What we seem to pick up on it in films, don't we, and go like, oh, I can't believe it. You know, it's just supposed to be Wales, and that guy had an accent from, Birmingham. It's like, well, yeah, people move.
Yeah. So, recommendations for this film. Would you recommend this film, and who would you recommend it to? I've got to say though, I got in trouble last time on our episode of The Fly, because I said The Fly wasn't a date movie, which it's not. But my wife listened to the episode and she reminded me that when we first started dating, I made her watch The Fly. Right.
It was obviously...
She said, you're such a liar.
Yeah, it's like, was it not memorable?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, so I'm not going to ask you if you think this is a date movie or not, because I don't want to put you in the doghouse. But it is a nice blend of horror and comedy, and it is elevated by the Rick Baker effects and expert werewolf guy. Definitely. There's some big shocks, but the pace, that they're not constant. I think makes perfect sense when plotting out this film that the shocks are not every 2 minutes. That is very well thought out. So it's like a nice starter horror, and also a real, in a sense, but if you're like a cosplayer, then there's some really cool, like I've seen some really cool Davids at different events over the years, like people like half of a sort of walking gear and then the other half all kind of, or even what's Griffin Dunn's character called again? Jack, yeah, I've seen some really good people as Jack. Like, so it's kind of a fun one.
There's a few that you could do if you want to be Jack.
Yeah.
Because you see him like 3 times.
Yeah.
More and more decayed each time.
Yeah, that's true. Funnily enough, because I hadn't seen it for so long, every time I've seen somebody dressed as one of those characters, I've just kind of gone like, just shrugged my shoulders. But now, after watching it again recently, I'm like, wow, I've seen some really accurate, like to the point where it's the same jacket. Like, wow, these people really do. Like, I'm too busy chasing around people dressed as Freddy Krueger or something from The Thing, and I'm like, oh, have a picture taken with me, or Jason or something. But like to see someone from American Werewolf in London, it's like that takes a little bit of creativity to kind of get all the little individual parts together. I like it though; it is cool. So yeah, it's for me. I would definitely recommend it. I don't think there's anything too gruesome. There's maybe 2 to 3 gruesome parts that might make people go, if they're not into sort of gory stuff, that might put them off. But generally, I think there's enough. When you watch a horror film, you want to, most of the time anyway, you want to have a bit of let the tension go by having a little bit of a laugh, don't you? So this is perfect because it does that. It tells you when to do that.
I definitely recommend this film to anyone that wants to start a career in special effects makeup. Yeah, it's inspiring. Yeah, this is definitely one to do your homework on if that's what you want to get into.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if people were watching it, you can think they did that in 1980, early 1980s, and you'll think and done such a good job. And to be fair, some of these have not been topped. Like, it certainly hasn't been topped by CG. In fact, if you look at CG, that's dated more than anything. A lot of CG is dated more than films like American Werewolf in London or The Fly. It's not like you're going to watch it and if you're somebody who really doesn't want to watch an old movie, which if you are, you need to have a long think and really go back and delve and make yourself watch them. Because it doesn't come across like that at all, does it?
It's funny you mentioned that, actually, because the sequel to this, An American Werewolf in Paris, that did not do very well, and I think part of the reason for that was because it was very CGI heavy. Have you seen that?
I have. I saw that back when Sky used to do like one premiere every Saturday night, and I remember watching it, and I may have even I've watched it more recently than I watched the original. And I think it's Tom Everett Scott's in it, isn't he? And I always think he's quite an engaging kind of actor, but there was nothing there. There was just nothing of interest. It was. I think I remember the pizza I was eating more than the film, so it's probably not a good sign.
On Rotten Tomatoes, do you want to take a guess at what that one was rated at?
The sequel.
The sequel.
63. No, lower. 52%.
Nope.
Oh, really?
A lot lower.
I'm more of an IMDb guy. So what was it?
It was 7%.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with John Landis, has it? It's not even a...
No,
it's a completely separate...
There was no John Landis, there was no Rick Baker, and it was very CGI heavy.
I believe they had ideas to do different things, or they were trying to come up with things. Like David Norton had a few ideas and things. But obviously, film companies don't care about that. They just want to get the film out, don't they? They're not too fussed about that kind of thing. About the quality sometimes. It's just, let's get that sequel out. Again, it's got something in common with The Fly too, hasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. There is actually a lot of similarities between this and The Fly.
Yeah. It's and completely by sort of coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, if you ain't got any more to add, we can jump straight into the spoilers.
Sure. Yeah. There's only one little thing I was going to say, which was like the Jenny Agutter, how she was kind of pivotal in a lot of young men's kind of blossoming and sexual awakenings, because it made me think of a bit of like National Lampoon's European Vacation and things like that, when you watch these things where there's like a moment of nudity and it becomes, because it's the 80s and there's not like DVD, things are not to hand. A young man seeing Jenny Agutter even in this film had a profound effect on many people. If you're just searching up, like, and I come to this because I'm done my research, and when I look online, the amount of men that are commenting on her and certain moments in the film is shameful. It's like, just have you watched the film or just watched a couple of minutes? So yeah, I thought I'd mention that just because it's kind of, it goes hand in hand with the film, really, doesn't it? There's a lot of guys that have a lot of time for this film. a lot of middle-aged men.
All right, cool. Let's get into spoilers.
Yeah, wow.
Spoiler warning.
All right, so let's get into the plot. Two American backpackers from New York City, David Kessler and Jack Goodman, are trekking across the moors in Yorkshire. As night falls, they stop at the Slaughtered Lamb, a local pub. Jack notices a 5-pointed star on the pub's wall, but when he asks about it, the pub goers grow hostile, and he and David leave. The pub goers warn them to keep to the road, stay clear of the moors, and beware of the full moon. David and Jack wander off the road onto the moors and they're attacked by a vicious creature. Jack is mauled to death and David is injured. The beast is shot and killed by some of the pubgoers after the barmaid implores them to help the two young men. Instead of a dead animal, David sees the corpse of a naked man lying next to him before passing out. So yeah, this is quite a heavy intro to a movie. So what did you make of this then?
Yeah, they get into it again. Gets into the story pretty quick. The slaughter of lamb is amazing. It's really got that League of Gentlemen, local pub for local people. There's no tubs, but there is a pentagram. There is a pentangle. Rick Mayall playing chess like you have in many pubs up and down. Yeah, like you've got professional Yorkshireman Brian Glover there. I can't just because of like the whole Kes. I don't know if you've seen Kes. In Kes, he's the bullying teacher. Back before Kes was just like a strange comedy prop for a guy taking the mick out of Craig David. It's actually a really good book and a good film. And Brian Glover, yeah, just one of those British treasures you love to see pop up in a film, and to be in the same pub as Rick Mayall. What a pub!
Did you find it a bit weird that the pub locals like forced them to leave? Like they were telling them they had to go, but at the same time they were very concerned for them, and eventually like went to their rescue and saved David at least.
Yeah.
Like couldn't they have just stayed in the pub?
Yeah, just stay inside where you're safe. Yeah. It was one of those. Maybe it was just like they just don't want them there. They don't want to kind of attract any additional outside interest, attention. Just get out of here as quick as you can. It's for your own good. It's for your own good. Trust me. And then obviously it wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And yeah, it's the proper college boys, proper like uni boys going to the local pub and doing the quiz and winning and everybody hating them kind of people.
Yeah.
Paying, proper like stereotypical. They'd be like, if they were British, they'd be like students paying for their drink with like a check or whatever. It'd be like a Steve Coogan character or something. Like something like Paul Carf would hate them. But yeah, it's like a lovely stroll as well for them. And when he's saying that, isn't he? When they're growling and everything's kind of around them and they're scared, he's like, "We're just going for a lovely stroll. Nice doggy." That's really funny.
Yeah, I guess it is Jack where you get most of the humour from this film. I mean, every time you see him, he just says something quite funny.
Yeah, they've got a good chemistry, haven't they? They've got, yeah, and he's kind of like the friend who kind of challenges him and takes has a bit of like, for want of a better phrase, like banter with him all the time. So it's better when they're on screen together. It's kind of a little bit more, the dialogue's a little bit more comedic and fun and playful, even when horrible things are happening. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
So David wakes up 3 weeks later in a London hospital. He's interviewed by a police inspector who tells him that he and David were attacked by an escaped lunatic. David insists that they were attacked by some sort of rabid dog or wolf. So I think it's at this point where he starts having those vivid dreams.
Yeah. Some of the dreams are really, really like sort of proper horror dreams, aren't they? Like slasher, or later on the home invasion. The home invasion one, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but the home invasion one for me is probably one of the best scenes in the film because it's so out of sync with the feel of the rest of the film.
Yeah,
it's so odd, but it's really good. It's funny because Evolution of Horror podcast are doing a home invasion series at the moment, and I bet you it might do. I'd be surprised if this film came up in it, but there is a really key scene with a horrible home invasion that ties into the sort of the Jewish background. It's so odd, but the initial ones are more like slasher, aren't they? Like or body horror, a bit of everything. It's almost like it covers a few different genres of horror or subsections of horror within these little not flashbacks, but like dream sequences. Yeah, do you like those? Do you think they? Yeah.
I think it's a very extreme visual scene with the Nazi werewolf. They are werewolves, aren't they?
Yeah. Or just very hairy men.
Yeah. You said this from a Jewish background. Is that actually mentioned in the film anywhere, or is that just a John Landis thing that he's just put in?
I think it's mentioned in the film with some of the characters, certainly like some of the social things. Also, the weirdest bit, which was where the nurse looks at his willy basically to see if he's Jewish, which only a Jewish writer would put that in, I'm sure. And it's also really unprofessional. It's like super unprofessional. She's like, oh, how do you know he was Jewish or something like that? And she holds up the thing and he's like, oh, Jenny Aguirre's is like, oh, right, okay, fair play. You're thinking, no, whistleblowing policy should be you challenge this.
You kind of get a double fake out in that scene as well, because you get the scene with the Nazi werewolves that he's killing David and his family, and then he wakes up and it's a dream, and then Nurse Alex walks in and opens the curtains and another Nazi werewolf comes out and kills her, and then he wakes up again, so it's like a dream of a dream.
And again, The Fly last week with the giving birth dream sequence. It was just like well, no, there's quite a few years between them, isn't there? Yeah. It's just, I guess, it's an effective way of getting a point across, and if done well, it can also be like sort of Wayne and Garth kind of kind of thing. But even that actually works really well in Wayne's World, so it's a bad example. But the dream sequences, when done well, are a really good way of keeping the pace of the film up and getting points across, kind of giving a little bit of depth to the character, and it works. That does work well in this. This is somebody who is a well-established, confident filmmaker with a bit of money to spend on these things. So yeah, I like that. And like I say, when Alex, it's funny because it also shows you when Alex is slashed or whatever, it's like this is going to be a relatively important character in the story, because otherwise why would he care later on?
That's true.
It's pretty cool.
I did get, like, especially in this like first dream sequence, I got very heavy like Evil Dead vibes with the camera panning through the woods.
Well, it was a very influential film. I don't know what year did, I can't remember off the top of my head what year Evil Dead came out, because I'm not, like, I've seen them, but it's not, say, my favourite franchise, but I can appreciate the steps forward made by that film creatively. So maybe John Landis is checking. But
it actually came out in the same year, so 81.
Right. Be interesting to know, because it is a very influential film, but then again this is as well, so and there'll be loads of influences of kind of classic horror that's just kind of given a modern twist at the time.
An undead Jack appears to David and explains that they were attacked by a werewolf, and since David was bitten, he is now a werewolf too. Jack is cursed to walk the earth in limbo, neither dead nor alive, until the wolf's bloodline is severed. Jack urges David to kill himself before the next full moon to prevent him from inflicting the same fate on anyone else. So this is where you see Jack for the first time. Dead Jack.
Dead Jack. That's what they call him.
The makeup was stunning in this bit, I think. I mean, hats off to Rick Baker. He did a fantastic job with the way that Dead Jack looks, all torn up, and I don't know about you, but I could not stop staring at that flappy bit of skin on his neck.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because it's so well done, isn't it? Because of the stages. I think, and the same as when we were watching The Fly, you know someone's really good at the job. They're not just like, here, wear this mask. Now you are the thing that I've said you are.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a gradual process. Therefore, a lot of thought goes into each stage, like whether it's a little flappy bit of skin or whether it's a ripped bit of clothing or a blood stain or a tooth starting to grow or whatever it is. It's so subtle and so vital to the storytelling. And maybe that's why we don't have that same emotional attachment to modern films with CGI where things happen in about a second. It's like, oh, he's a werewolf now. Like, oh, great. Yeah. And it's like, this is more real. Like you say, that's why it stands out so well. It's so well done, and you want it, and you want to look at it, don't you? Yeah. or maybe you don't, depending on what you're into.
Upon his release from hospital, David moves into the London flat of Alex Price, a pretty young nurse who grew fond of him whilst treating him. Jack, in a more advanced stage of decay, appears to warn David that he'll become a werewolf the next night. Jack again advises David to kill himself to avoid killing innocent people, but David refuses to believe him. So dead Jack, he's back again, looking even more gross looking.
Yeah, he's kind of ruining the romance really as well, isn't he? He's just
yeah.
It's like, can you please just give us a... He's like, again, I think this is a bit... David is John Landis because he's just like, of course, an American student would be irresistible to any nurse. She would take him home, feed him, fall in love with him. She literally reads to him as well. Yeah. Like, she's like... It is such a, like, sort of late teens... now you've said when he wrote it when he was a lot younger, it makes perfect sense. It's exactly how somebody who is dreaming of having a girlfriend would want thinks it might be like,
Yeah. So Dr. Hirsch visits the slaughtered lamb to investigate. When he asked about the incident, the pubgoers deny any knowledge of David, Jack, or the attack. One distraught pubgoer speaks to Dr. Hirsch outside the pub and says that David should not have been taken away from the village, since he will endanger other people when he transforms. When the full moon rises, David transforms into a werewolf and prowls the streets and the London Underground, killing 6 people. So we're about an hour into the movie now, and we're finally getting to the iconic scene.
Yes.
Where he has his transformation into a werewolf. And this is, without a doubt, probably the biggest, or at least most known, scene in horror for its special effects.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The physicality of it as well is so good. Like, not just the actual makeup, but the embodiment of that character. It's not like he's just sort of stood up straight with a wolf head on. His body really does take on that kind of lupine feel. It's really believable. I wonder if people would say it's the most believable werewolf transformation that's ever been done.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, this to me feels more real as opposed to other werewolf movies. I mean, I haven't seen that many werewolf movies, but just the way he kind of like drops to his knees and he's screaming, Jesus Christ!
Yeah. It's really gross and awkward and horrible and painful, and it works really well.
Yeah, it's a very kind of slow process as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing it, everything bit by bit on his body. His hands are getting longer, his nails are growing longer into like claws coming out of his fingers. His nose is growing. Yeah, I read an article with Rick Baker where he was a little bit disheartened when he was watching the scene, because obviously he spent months making that, and it was all over and done with in 5 minutes.
Yeah, the actual full wolf is only on screen for a total of a minute, which is you don't, because it's used so well, you don't think that, you feel like it's on a lot longer. So maybe that's an argument against what he's saying. You don't want to, it's a bit like if Jaws was 60 minutes of close-ups of the shark, we probably wouldn't have that kind of fear and dread and suspense, would we?
Yeah. Well, I guess this scene is probably the most you get to see of it throughout any of the movie, because he's lying there, you get to see like the full body of him, transforming. But I can understand why he's upset, or was upset, because you spend that long on a project, and it's all over and done with in a couple of minutes.
Time has shown, I guess, that people still appreciate it. But I guess, like you say, if you've made this, you kind of want to show it off if you've put so much time into it. He's maybe not as interested in the story and kind of editing and the, that kind of side of it. He's more interested in like the thing I made being on screen.
Yeah. Well, he did go back and he said he was happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, probably in the moment.
Yeah. Well, during the screening of this, after the transformation scene, he got a standing ovation for it, so that's good.
Yeah. Once everybody started saying how wonderful it was.
Well, I guess with most werewolf films, this is probably the most you see, because most films you just get like a claw here and there, fangs coming at you, quick flashes of werewolf scenes. So it's good to actually get a full visual.
Yeah, and it all, like, even though it's a slow transformation, it's not like probably not as many clues as in The Fly. Where lots of things being layered on top of each other. But then even if, and this was my thing about Alex, she's not concerned about his strange behaviour at all. It wouldn't matter if he came in and he looked completely different. Like, she'd probably just completely no-sell it and just keep going, because it doesn't disturb her. It never impacts how attractive she finds him. Not once. It's like, these Brits, they just love those Americans. They just think they're amazing. It doesn't matter if he's a werewolf, if he's naked, if he's wearing no clothes, if he's wearing some clothes he's stolen off a washing line, if he's talking and screaming and shouting, it's okay. That's just him. He's fine. He's super.
So after his transformation, he goes on a rampage throughout London. He kills a total of 6 people, but the one that stands out to me is the one on the in the London Underground, because you get that aerial shot of the top of the escalator, because he's chasing him through the London Underground. He falls on the escalator and it's like a slowly going up, and I would imagine he's standing at the top of the escalator looking down, and you just kind of see the werewolf slowly crawl up into the frame. Yeah,
that's a really good visual, isn't it? The bit is like the bit before it, I think the guy's like, "Good Lord," and it's "Good Lord," it's like super British.
Good Lord.
There's like the party guests, the sort of the upper class people who are. And he obviously leaves the arm behind, and the quick cuts and the savagery of it is really good in that. And then you've got the different side of it, which is like the homeless people around the barrel, which is a real John Landis trademark. I can think of 3 films. There's a quiz question for anybody. I can think of 3 films where he has homeless people in big long coats, beanie hat on, warming their hands around a barrel. It comes across a little bit like, I'm a rich person and I'm not quite sure what homeless people do. Let's just have them stand around a barrel. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of how it looks a little bit. And there's the viciousness of those attacks, but then it's sometimes undercut in a really nice way, allows us to laugh, the good Lord, or you know, the homeless person thinking it's somebody else. The party guests are kind of, you know, going out searching for his friend and finding the arm. There is a little bit of humour just drizzled through there that elevates it, that works really well. But I think you're right. I think the one on the escalator is the real the best one from a cinematography point of view. It's really cool to look at.
Yeah, I know John Landis and Rick Baker did have one slight disagreement when it came to how the werewolf is going to look and move, because they couldn't decide on whether it would be a 2-legged or 4-legged werewolf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and obviously John Landis wanted it to be a 4-legged werewolf. So
right,
what Rick Baker had to do was you never really see the back end of the werewolf, like the rear legs. That's because there's a guy kind of inside the wolf, kind of manning it like a puppet, and that guy is actually laying on a plank of wood, being wheelbarrowed kind of on set. So there's kind of people behind him kind of wheeling him into frame.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it works so well.
Yeah.
It works, yeah. No, it's not like, yeah. So, this is the thing. Sometimes you shoot it well enough, and you have the right people thinking about it, about what it's going to look like on camera as you're doing it. There's a real collaboration. It comes together, and a bit like saying with Jaws. Like Jaws is a good example, isn't it? It's like you look at that for too long, and it takes away a little bit of believability and realism. But the way it's filmed, you never once feel that isn't a real shark.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. It's like it just makes you feel so. It suddenly goes from being quite light-hearted to being really serious and quite dangerous. Like he's dangerous. Even this is the guy who's naked in the zoo. You know, this is the guy who looks like Billy Peltzer from Gremlins, and like he's like but naked and like getting a balloon off a little boy. Like he's literally like, a naked American stole my balloons. like the best line in the film for me. But like these things are. You never once think he's not dangerous once he transforms, or even in you know, when he does the certain things. So he's really dangerous.
So that is the next scene we've got here. He wakes up the next morning naked on the floor of a wolf enclosure at the London Zoo.
Oh, I thought I was behind. I'm actually in front. I don't know.
He's got no recollection of what happened and returns to Alex's flat. So that is probably one of the more funnier bits of this film, where he wakes up naked and he's running through the zoo, steals the balloons off the little kid.
Yes.
And the red coat from the woman.
Wonder where that kid is now. Like, it's like I said that line in American Werewolf in London, because the way he read it was perfect. Like, I imagine he's not an actor, because an actory kid wouldn't read it as perfectly as that.
Yeah.
It was just like really natural. It was funny. Also, I don't think naked men in zoos enticing little boys is
hiding in bushes.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening in films these days. But yeah, it's such a weird, funny scene. Again, it's that balance. It's not 50-50 comedy horror, but it's like, maybe, I don't know, there's like 30% comedy that's just in the right place. The more I think about it, the more this is probably John Landis's most considered and well thought out movie. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's kind of obvious when you see it, but when you think about it in reality, this was filmed in an actual real wolf enclosure with real wolves there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and an article that I read said that the wolves were fed, but it didn't make it any less scary to film it. No,
it wouldn't, would it?
And although David wanted to get out quickly, the trainer said he had to get out slowly and not make any sudden movements.
Oh, great. That's just what you want to hear, isn't it? Yeah.
After realising that he is responsible for the previous night's murders, David unsuccessfully attempts to get himself arrested in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? I think that's a really funny scene. Oh, is it a guy from The Bill as well, Superintendent Brownlow from The Bill, which has stayed in my head for some reason. But like, I will not arrest you. I will not arrest you unless you say something offensive about the royal family, and that's it. And I was thinking, isn't this funny? Because like you can see people being carted away during the coronation, you know, holding up signs and they're just being led off. And I was like, just like David. Just like David, if you say something, it's like you can do pretty much whatever you want, but God, don't you say anything about the Queen.
He calls his family from a phone booth in Piccadilly Circus to say he loves them, but he loses the courage to slit his wrists with a pocket knife. David sees Jack in an even more advanced stage of decay outside an adult movie theatre. Inside, Jack introduces David to his victims from the previous night, some of whom are furious with David and suggest different suicide methods to free them from their undead state.
Yeah, this is like proper knockabout humour, really, in a way. It's like dark humour, but very silly, and like in a really gloriously silly way. Even this for me is like takes him back to like the Zucker Brothers kind of stuff. Even the fake porn film, I think, is like that he directed, didn't he? He directed that himself. Is very much like something you would see in Airplane or Naked Gun, or definitely Kentucky Fried Movie, which he directed. Like, this is him really having fun, you know, because you've got all those people like just basically argumentative dead people who are just really kind of like don't like him, and you don't often get that in a film, do you, where the person they've murdered, they come back and complain about you murdering them. I just think it's so well done. It's really, really good. That whole bit is a really creative and funny, and that's very Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, I say they're mostly all furious because I'm also thinking of the engaged couple that are like really chirpy, giving him ideas of how to hang himself. Yeah,
they're just like good folks trying to help out.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like the obvious choice, is it? None of the things that happen in that scene are the obvious choice at that point in the movie. It makes it very, very creatively thought about.
So I think this is probably the last time we get to see dead Jack. What did you think of how he looks in here? I mean, it's not makeup anymore now, is it? It's essentially just a puppet.
Yeah, and again, like a lot of great things can be done with puppets, can't they? In films, and we're getting towards that era. I guess we're getting towards the mid '80s and Gremlins and different little creatures and bits and bobs. It's really good. It's like the great use again of stages of decomposition, or pacing for the film shows where things are. He looked really great, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
I can tell that you thought it was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I loved it. I mean, what's the guy that plays Jack? What's his name?
Oh, David Norton. Oh, Griffin Dunne.
Griffin Dunne. Yeah. I'm assuming he's probably there, like manning the puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine he is to be there to voice him.
He's an interesting person because this is a little bit of a digression. I remember listening to I think it was a podcast about his family. So his dad's like a really esteemed writer, and his sister was in like a relationship with somebody and was murdered. And it's like basically, like when true crime was really taken off with Serial, there was a lot of different podcasts that kind of investigated this thing that happened in like the Dunn family. She was called Dominique Dunn, and his dad's called Dominic Dunn. So like he's got like a bit of darkness in his family.
Wow.
Family life that's kind of, but he's quite obviously it's in the future, but he's got that light-hearted character in this, isn't he? Like even when the horrible things are happening, he never loses his sense of humour.
Yeah. Which is weird, actually, because I read, think I read something, or maybe I watched a YouTube video, some kind of behind the scenes thing. But it was saying how he was on set was kind of how he's like in the film. You know, he's very happy and chirpy. But he really didn't like having all the makeup, all the prosthetics on his face. But you don't think about it, do you? I mean, on film, he's acting so good.
No.
He's so bubbly and happy, you know, not a care in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wasn't a fan of all that makeup on him.
You probably know more about Evil Dead than me, but I thought that the final stage reminded me a bit of the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Like,
have you ever seen the film The House?
Yes, again, a long time ago. But yeah.
He reminds me of someone from that, you know, a very decayed, rotting person.
I imagine we'll get to that, will we?
I hope so. It's such a good film. It's really funny. That's a comedy horror as well.
I think there's quite a few in the series, isn't there? Yeah.
There is, yeah. I do have the box set, but I don't think I've really watched them all. I mean, it's the first one that stood out to me. I loved it. Right, we come up to the final part of the movie now. David transforms into a werewolf again inside the cinema. He decapitates a police inspector and wreaks havoc in the streets, causing the death of several motorists and bystanders.
Wow.
What did you make of this bit here?
Yeah, it's like Blues Brothers, but with decapitations. And it looks painful. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, if anyone who's ever had like a little bump in their car, it does shake you up. It makes you feel horrible. Like cars, we're not made to go in a metal machine going at those speeds, and they're smashing into each other, they're getting gnarly injuries. It looks too real, really real. It's absolute carnage. And squished bodies, run over people.
People flying out the windscreen.
Yeah, British red buses in accidents. Like he's throwing everything at it, isn't he? He's like bikes, people falling off bikes, flying off bikes, heads being chopped off. It's great. And like even then, through all this, Alex is like still trying to reason with him. He's that 4-day relationship or whatever it is they've had. Is she's holding on.
It's funny you made that connection with the Blues Brothers, because I was thinking the exact same thing with all the carnage in London, and I'm sure it's been well beaten to this day, but I'm pretty sure the Blues Brothers held the record for the most cars piled up in a movie.
Wow. Like Vin Diesel going like, hold my beer. It's like, I know I'm saying that, bear in mind, I think I could only tolerate the first Fast and Furious film, but I imagine there's thousands of CG cars. Maybe Blues Brothers, at least they're real cars.
No, yeah.
I don't know if that's true. People can come at me and say, no, actually, every car in Fast and Furious are all real cars. maybe they are, but Blues Brothers, I bet they all were. I bet they were, just all jalopies and setting them all on fire and smashing them into each other.
So the police eventually trap David and surround him in an alleyway. Alex runs down the alleyway and tries to calm David down by telling him that she loves him. Although David's consciousness appears to recognise her for a little moment, he lunges forward and is shot by the police. Alex cries while staring at David, reverted back to his human form, lying naked and dead on the ground.
Fin. End.
Roll credits.
Just like The Fly, it's like, done.
Yep. Yep. Nothing needed. Right, should we go ahead and rate this movie? So how many Nazi werewolves are you going to give this out of 10?
Well, I was going to give it... I was going to give it 7 best wishes to Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer out of 10. Because it just made me chuckle on the thing. I was like, well, I hope it works out for those guys. It's more horror than comedy, the perfect balance. Don't bother with the sequel. Great cast. yeah, so I'm going to have it right up there next to The Fly. I see it exactly the same as The Fly for me. It's not my favourite horror film. It's not a film I revisit. So for me, it would be disingenuous to give it anything more than a 7, but I think a 7 for me is a really good score. So yeah, 7.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and what was it you said? 7 what, sorry, out of 10?
Nazi werewolves.
7 Nazi werewolves. Okay, yeah, I'll change it from Best Wishes to Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer to Nazi werewolves.
So I was going to give this a 7 out of 10 as well.
Oh, cool.
But after watching this again under a more critical eye, paying more attention to things, stuff I never really seen before, I think I'm gonna bump this up to an 8 Nazi werewolves out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just so good. I love this film. I mean, I'm a sucker for practical effects. So that draws me in on its own. So along with the storyline being amazing, the acting was amazing. So yeah, 8 Nazi werewolves. That's what I'm giving it. Yeah,
it's better than I remembered it. Definitely, I enjoyed it more this time. So yeah, maybe I would have given it, say 10, 15 years ago, I might have given it 6, and I've moved up to a 7. So yeah. I see where you're coming from. Definitely.
Right, okay, let's move into some trivia.
Trivia. Oh yeah!
So, I've already mentioned that he wrote this when he was 18. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I didn't know that until you said, and it really opened up to me the it makes perfect sense, the kind of the sort of what I say, not in a bad way, but like the immaturity of the way it was written.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Finances believed that it was too funny to be a horror and too scary to be a comedy. Universal Studios was pressuring John Landis to get Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi to play the roles of David and Jack, but he went with his unknown actors instead. Yeah,
there should have been like early, sort of, or sort of college graduates or on a gap year, but look like Dan Aykroyd. Just like acting as if he was in his early 20s, because he's somebody, and both of those guys really are people who always looked old. It's like, there's just that period of time where like they were probably in their mid-20s and looked like they were in their mid-40s.
The pub shown in the film, known as the Slaughtered Lamb, was actually a cottage located in Crickenden. Not heard of that place. Do you know where that is?
It sounds like Yorkshire, or is it Wales?
Don't know. And the interior scenes were filmed in the Black Swan in Surrey. Oh,
okay. Not one of my locals now.
It's fairly close to me. I've been there a few times, but now I know that, I might try and find it.
Get your picture taken.
An American Werewolf in London was the first film allowed to shoot in Piccadilly Circus in 15 years.
Yes.
Landis accomplished this by inviting 300 members of London's Metropolitan Police Service to a screening of his new film, The Blues Brothers. The police were so impressed by his work that they granted the production a 2-night filming permit between the hours of 1 and 4 a.m. The traffic was stopped only 3 times for 2-minute increments to film the automobile stunts involving the double-decker bus.
I didn't know that, and I was thinking, why would you be like, I've just watched The Blues Brothers with all these car accidents. Yes, please, come and film your film where I work. Yeah. It's just like, I'd do anything to it for a free cinema ticket. Yeah. Like, these cops, basically, if you want to bribe a London cop, just like Meerkat Mondays, be sorted. Yeah. So, yeah, a bit of an odd one.
Landis and Baker had their hands full with An American Werewolf in London, but they still found time to cameo in the film. Landis appears towards the end as a man who's thrown out the window after being hit by a car. Baker, on the other hand, has a more memorable role as he is one of the Nazi werewolves during David's nightmare. He plays the Nazi werewolf who cuts David's throat open.
Oh, cool.
The two were some of the most important people to work on the movie, so it's not surprising that they were able to get bit roles.
Yeah, well, I think, that's again like a bit of a Zucker Brothers thing, I guess. I'm not sure actually, are the Zucker Brothers in all of us? But I know that in those sort of films, sometimes you have like the worst thing happen to somebody quite famous, or the worst thing happen to the director, or just kind of the comedy side of it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Right. Like last week, I think we should end the episode on something fun. So I've got a new game. This is the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Okay.
So I've picked out 5 horror films and I've pinned them against American Werewolf in London, and you've got to try and tell me which one has the highest score. American Werewolf in London or the film that I've pinned it against.
Ah, so we're doing a bit of a play cards right.
Yeah.
But in case anyone who owns the play cards, we're not doing that. We do not want. Can do by Bruce Forsyth. Marvellous. Right, go on then, Brucey.
Okay, so which of these have the highest Rotten Tomatoes score? An American Werewolf in London, that you already know has 89%, or A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Higher.
What, A Nightmare on Elm Street?
No, I think American Werewolf is higher. Sorry.
Ooh. Well, you would be wrong.
Oh, balls. So I'm out. I don't win anything.
A Nightmare on Elm Street has 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? Wow. I would have thought maybe people might have took a while to warm up to Nightmare on Elm Street, but critically this film would have been more popular. I overthought it.
Okay, second one. An American Werewolf in London with 89% against The Thing.
Okay. American Werewolf in London. I'm going with that again.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Thing has 84%.
Ooh, okay. I thought it might have been a bit lower. Again, I may be underestimating critical appraisal of some of these films, thinking that maybe that we've only come to them over time.
Yeah.
But again, overthinking it. Need to just focus on the numbers. Right.
Okay. Next one. An American Werewolf in London at 89%, or The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, so these are all quite critically acclaimed films, aren't they? Easy for me to say.
I will say there is only 1% between them.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Do you know? Again, I'm an IMDb guy. I'm looking at. If you're like, this was out of 10, 7.3 or whatever. I'm going to go with American Werewolf again.
Yeah, you are correct.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yes.
89%. Texas Chainsaw was 88.
Ooh, wow.
So your next one, An American Werewolf with 89 against Halloween.
Right. So, both game changers. I'm going to go with Halloween.
And you are correct.
Yes! I've only got one wrong so far, I think.
Halloween was right up there with 96%.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't really see them that high on Rotten Tomatoes.
No. Yeah, I don't really go on Rotten Tomatoes. On IMDb, I tend to look at who's the lowest. Try and watch all the lowest films. like, it's 2.3. If it's over like 4.9, I'm like, it's a bit too good for me. This.
Okay, last one. An American Werewolf in London at 89%, or The Exorcist.
Oh, okay. So, Exorcist, gotta be.
You sure?
Yeah.
You are wrong.
Oh, I was sure as well. When you said, "Are you sure?" I should have took that hint. Damn, because I just thought, with it being such it's, I don't want to say elevated, but people look at it as like this godlike.
Yeah.
godlike, but yeah. No pun intended. But yeah, I'm shocked actually that it has higher.
Yeah, no, The Exorcist only had 84%.
Right. Maybe religious side of the critics didn't like it as much.
Yeah,
It could be a bit of that. Wow. Do you know? I feel like I did okay.
Yeah.
I got a few right, a few wrong.
You did all right.
But, yeah. If we were doing it like proper play cards right, I would have lost straight away. Won nothing. But yeah. Anyway, never mind.
Oh,
Sure.
It was good fun.
Thanks, man. That was good fun.
Have you got anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Do only one last thing, like
Yeah.
Columbo. John Peters, the producer, the guy who wanted to get robotic spiders into every film and never managed to get it in any film until he got it into the one with Will Smith. What's it called? Wild Wild West.
Oh,
So
right, yeah.
he tried to get them into Superman, the new Superman film, Superman Lives, with the Kevin Smith one.
Yeah.
And there's a great story about him. So if anyone wants to Google John Peters, one of the producers, he's a really interesting guy. So yeah, but that was my only extra thing. But I've learnt so much today. Thanks, man.
Yeah, me too. No, it's good fun. Right, cool. That will conclude today's show. If you've liked today's episode, be sure to go and like us on Facebook. That's where we announce our next episode, as well as each month doing a themed poll pick, where you get to choose what you want us to watch. We like to hear from you, so please feel free to leave us a comment or send us a message, or you can email us at allthingshorror666@gmail.com. And that is all. Thanks for listening.
Go to some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?